I got some eBay Marines. They were very reasonably priced. Let's talk about Space Hulk Deathwing. The game, I've beaten it. It's pretty great. I think my previous notes stand. There's a few adjustments to them. The trees for PvP are more complex than I thought. Not PvP, multiplayer are more complex than I thought. And I would like that plus, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times more of itself. So 500% more customization for each class in the bottom tier items and opening up your selection of class customizations outside of 3. So you're not really pigeonholed down to like a few builds, which is what it appears to be the case. That is what it appears to be the case to me now. And at the end of the day, it's still a I think it's a fantastic game. The art is great, and if you're somebody like me who just wants to run around with a Stormbolter and power axe things in the face and Stormbolter things in the cake-hole, this is basically the game you're looking for. And if it's not the game you're looking for, I get it, because there's a few things they could adjust to make the game far better, far more complex, and a much more enjoyable experience for the people who play the game. But also, I can understand that they're trying to go for a more, what they would call, consumer-friendly experience, but I would say you don't exactly need a consumer-friendly experience. Just make it less obtuse than because I was obtuse is the word. So make it not bass-ackwards is the answer. And still add the complexity. The story is, I guess, an alright story. It's decently fun, but at the same time, I don't know if my actions mean anything, and it also doesn't matter too much. But I guess I'll say it's like every other story recently in games, except for like Pillars of Eternity and I Divine Cybermancy. I kind of like the story, but the story was so damn convoluted and like in depth that like nobody read all like 10 zillion fucking text screens they threw at you. But it was pretty interesting, I thought. And there's a middle ground there for less 10 bajillion dialogue boxes later and more story involved, like more story in on the Deathwing end. The story actually is pretty great. I'm not gonna lie. The story is pretty fun, but at the same time, like, it's nothing special, and it's bleh. It's as far as like a 40k dork story goes, I love it, but it's not like a pinnacle story that I would call. It's not like a landmark anything. It's there. It exists, and it serves its purpose. But at the same time, I think if there were just a few things that that they changed again, maybe make it that the way you succeeded or failed in your operations, you could do things. Maybe I just didn't succeed hard enough to recover certain things, but if you recover, maybe if you did enough in game, you recovered some of the stuff you found, and if you played, you know what I'm talking about. So it's just a few changes that they can make to improve the game in these very minor fashions. And the armor customization is alright. It's actually really cool, the different armors, but they're all Dark Angels, and I would like to just be able to be a different chapter. Simply please give me a different icon. It's not that I don't like Dark Angels. I like pretty much all the Space Marine chapters. But that's the thing, is I like pretty much all the Space Marine chapters. It'd be great if I could have Carcharodons and fucking Flesh Terrors and fucking Imperial Fist and Ultramarine, everything from the Smurfs, like I said, the Ultramarines, all the way to the fucking Space Sharks and Angry Marines, guys. That would be the truly dang shit. And the final note is weapon selection. The weapon selection is fine, but the builds on them are a little imbalanced. The Psychic build with the Power Axe is totally imbalanced, I think is what it's called. It's completely broken. It shits on every other build. I don't know why you would not run that. It allows you to get a Chain Lightning that's on a 1 second cooldown, because it gives you a 66% cooldown on your Chain Lightnings, and it gives you a knockback on a 2 second cooldown. So you could run around and you get a Super Nuke on the Super Nuke I had, because I didn't optimize for it, was on a 6 second cooldown. But you could probably optimize this build to be even more broken than the build I had. And then, I'm probably going to have to reprime these. Whatever. I was just saying if that would work. That's fine. It didn't. Yeah. Make the builds not as imbalanced. Make one of them not clearly just better than the other ones would be helpful. But also, making the builds more considerate of what a build for a Terminator would be. Let me get a Assault Cannon Power Axe if I want it. Let me get a Power Axe if I want it. Let me get and like I said, address the balance of the Power Axe so you don't get a negative 128%, 20. Whatever, man. I'm stoned. 132% cooldown. Negative bonus. That's too ridiculous, but if you address these things and approach the game appropriately with the numerical values, make the lightning claws and make you flurry like a motherfucker. Like, there are certain effects that happen, but the Storm Shield doesn't block damage like a Storm Shield should. It needs more than a 10-second invuln. Because right now it's the shittest Storm Shield of all times. Barely even worth it. It's just basically another melee weapon that's not as good as another melee weapon. So, why? At least that's my opinion. And especially when you consider you can go Stormbolter Power Axe and then run around with super psychic abilities on literally an almost non-existent cooldown and do way more damage than any other gun could possibly put out. So it's a fun game. It's not perfect, but no game is, and small things change everything. As I've talked about, the spell cooldown coefficient on the axe is far fucking completely imbalanced, and it breaks shits on everything else in the game. That's just the way it is. And, I mean, there's room for improvement in many things, as with all games. Overall, I greatly enjoy the art style. Much of it is very dead on. A lot of it is, the combat is almost suffocating and very difficult, and I enjoy that. The threat is ever present, and you are struggling your way through. And there was a couple missions where I was just running to the final extract point as my squad died behind me, and that was fun. And a nice dramatic feel to it. Maybe that's because I suck. I made it through. And at the end of the day, you could really enjoy the game, especially if you're like me and you're just a Warhammer dork and you don't especially care that you're Dark Angels and you just want to run around and power axe things and shoot you with a Stormbolter, because you're also fine with being a Librarian build that's just super OP because you're like, I'm a Dark Angel Librarian. Oh, perfect. Oh, I'm so stoked, guys. Also, there's, like I said, the skins are sweet, and I'm probably going to buy a bunch of the skins with my Valor tokens. If you can buy Valor tokens, I'm on the fence about. If you can buy them with money, I go, ooh, that's not good at all. But if you just can only earn them through the game, I'm actually fine with it because it helps you earn the items that you might not be able to get otherwise. Anyways, I'll catch y'all later.